Hello, hi, welcome. So today we're going to be adding a GPS to our Nazgul Evoque F5D. If you haven't seen the build video, it'll be down below. Please go check that out. So if you watch the build video, you'll see that there's one or two differences. One being as I changed out the antennas for IFlight antennas, they just seem to be more robust. The other ones didn't last as long as I would have liked them to. The props, I've got Mr. Steel PB&Js on, so I still really enjoyed the props that I had from the build video and would recommend them. But this past weekend, my friend Ryan came by and he gave me a set of these PB&J props, and he was like, try them out because it's not really his thing. And I must say, they are phenomenal. I always thought that they were quite overpriced. I don't know if that's maybe just a South African thing, but they are really genuinely phenomenal. I really enjoy them. And then the straps I obviously broke. Well, it's maybe not that obvious, but I broke them in a crash. And you can also see that this drone has been through some, it's seen some shit. I also 3D printed this front bumper that's taken quite a lot of impact. And would recommend it. Let me know if you want that print file. Oh yes, and then also I changed the feet. I 3D printed red feet instead of the green Nazgul ones. And also I have broken one of the arms and replaced that. So this drone has been put through its paces and can honestly say it's one of my faves. Would recommend still as a pre-build or to just buy it. I have another 5-inch that actually just burnt out the AC the other day, and we're going to be working on that. But for now, let's carry on with the GPS install. That's what we are doing today. Also, as you can see, this GoPro mount on this drone is broken. I don't know why, but I just can't seem to get one that survives. They just don't survive at all. Very much anticipated video adding GPS to your Nazgul. There's been hundreds of people asking me for this video since I published the build video, and I've been meaning to do it forever and just haven't gotten around to it because I also have a full-time job, but working on that. So if you buy the frame kit, you get this little GPS holder that can just go into the back, and it also has a little standoff that sort of slides through that you can put your 2 screws into. And very annoyingly, this standoff's thread is not standard. I think it's 2.5 M2.5, where most screws on drones are 3 or 2. Anyway, I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So another thing we must do, this is something that is a bit painstaking, but whenever you want to work on it and you want to take these side walls off, you need to also undo the camera because that holds them in place over here, if you can see by that angle. So this bumper that I've printed covers these screws, which makes it even worse. So that means you have to undo these screws, then the bumper comes off, then you have to undo these, and then the camera cage comes off, and then the whole thing falls apart. So I literally just cut out like little squares in the corners to be able to do this easier. I must say that the one thing about the Nazgul is it is not amazing for when you need to do repairs and taking it apart. Cool. So now, when I take these sidewalls off, the one comes off easy. So what I do is I'll take that one off and just unplug it there. Take it out of my way. And then this one always gets caught on the USB port, the USB-C port right there. So what I do is I'll sort of push it like that. Try and get some light on there. Push it like that and then lift. So I'll push it like that and then lift, and then it goes just past the USB-C port and it's out of your way. And then boom, and you can just unplug it, put it aside. So now I'm gonna just undo these screws for the flight controller. I just have them finger tight, especially in a build like this where even if it does come loose, everything is so contained. But obviously you do not want it to get loose, so just like make sure that they, just finger tight. So now this is the little harness that came with this GPS unit that I got. And by the way, this is the Rash FPV M10 GPS. It's not an iFlight one. Rash FPV GNS Mini M10 Mini GPS module. It's just for ease of access. The iFlight ones weren't really available anywhere in South Africa. But anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I know that there's this little port here on this flight controller that's open, that's got 5 volts and it's got a TX and an RX. So I'm just gonna plug this in there. A lot of people use this for their transmitter, and not transmitter, their receiver, sorry. But I just feel like having your receiver wired up, as in soldered onto pads, is better, safer, because these plugs could have a bad connection at some stage. So right then, what we're doing is we're just gonna thread these through. You have them come out the back here. Cool. So that's there. Now, what I'm gonna do actually already is put these back, just because I do not like, or actually first what I'm going to do is put everything back so long, just because I don't want any electronics flip-flopping around while I'm working on this. Also, what I do suggest, if you're putting this, plug this in, the little pluggy of the LED pluggy, before you put this on. It makes your life a lot easier. If you haven't figured that out already, you will quite quickly. Cool. And the other one. cool. That's back, but I'm not going to put the top plate on, just for ease of access if we need to get back in there. So also, just a little disclaimer, if you want your drone to come back with GPS rescue with pinpoint accuracy, hover, come in for a landing, this is not that video. I'm purely making this video so you don't lose your drone. I'll show you how to connect it and set it up in the software and everything, but this is not going to make your drone hover and land perfectly. I don't see the point in that. If that is the thing you want, I've got a friend who made a brilliant video exactly how to do that. I'll put it down below. Check him out. He's not a bad guy. So next thing we want to do is take our GPS, pre-tin all of the little tabs. Okay, so now you can see that this is started from this side, ground, voltage, which is the 5 volts, TX, RX. So we're going to do the ground and the 5 volts first. Alright, so now at this stage, before we carry on, the TX and RX wires are always inverted. So this counts for pretty much any peripheral device that you will connect with your drone. If you don't know this yet, your receiver, as in your ELRS or your Crossfire or your whatever receiver that you'll use, RX goes to TX and TX goes to RX. As in from the flight controller, the TX pad goes to RX here, and the RX on the flight controller goes to TX here, and it's the same with receivers. People genuinely think that I'm joking when I say that, but that is the truth. So now, before we carry on, check your wiring diagram of the flight controller and the pads that you connected your little harness to before you carry on. On the wiring diagram, I can see that this little pluggy that we plugged in here at the bottom, 5 volt, which is the red wire, correct, ground, the black, and then white is the RX, blue is the TX. Let me just double check that. Yes, so RX, TX, white RX, blue TX. Then we're going back. White is RX, in other words, that goes to TX. And blue is TX, so that goes to RX. Cool, so that should be it for the soldering part of this. We can disconnect this. We can take our little bracket that came with it. I'm pretty sure IFlight would sell this, or you can probably get it on their, they've got this driver folder with a bunch of tools and just helpful files and things. You can get it there. So unfortunately, this GPS module is just a tad too small and it doesn't sit perfectly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bit of this 3M tape and just put it underneath it just to stick it down. Just a tiny little piece. What you could also do, is just use a little zip tie, cable tie, whatever you decide to call it, and the part of the world you're from. Zip tie for my American friends, cable tie for my South African friends. You could put one of those just around the whole thing. I don't like to do that just because it feels like it's not neat, and this just feels neater. I don't like having visible cable ties on my drones at all, pretty much as far as I can, avoid it. Sometimes in the field you have to cable tie down something on a fly day, but let's try and avoid that on builds. So just gonna get that in there. So it does still get gripped by the little edges of this 3D printed part like it was meant to. Just gonna okay, put this back, and now this is where that goes. So you need your odd sized screwdriver. Cool, there we have a GPS unit module installed, just like that. So these wires I don't want sticking out the end like this, so I'm just gonna pull this in here and sort of try and hide them as best I can around here. And see, that looks better, could be better still. Also, what you could do is if you had a piece of invisible heat shrink, or even I've seen people use normal heat shrink, put that over here, heat shrink it, and then that unit will stay right there. It will not be going anywhere. Yeah, that looks good. So now I am going to plug in a battery and let's see. Also changed my LEDs to red to go with my red feet. I quite like red, and it worked really well with the black props. In any case, that's not the point. If you see those LED lights coming from the module, the red and the green, you know it's connected. It's at the very least getting power. But I'm going to unplug it for now. Then we're going to put this guy back on top where he belongs. And then I got a new GoPro mount, old GoPro mount. Like I mentioned earlier, go through these. I keep a few in my drone bag, just like 2 or 3, because they do break. I haven't really gotten one of those good ones that encase, but I do want one of those that completely encases the GoPro for the GoPro 11 mini that I'm using. Just because I also have TBS glass ND filters that I'd like to put on there, and I can't just stick it on the front of the GoPro just like that. It's not how physics work, unfortunately. But I haven't found a good one yet that works. So if you have one, please share. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is come to failsafe, activate GPS rescue. Initial climb mode I say to 10 meters just so that it climbs up a little bit. You want your altitude mode to be max altitude, so if you've flown behind a tree it'll climb up to the maximum altitude that you were in that flight before it comes back home. Other things aren't really very important. Max pitch I would push up to 60, just because if you're flying at a 45-degree angle, which is actually more of a natural angle for a drone than what you realize, your drone might have a bit of trouble getting back to you if it's flying into wind. The rest is pretty much as levers standard. Minimum satellite, some people bring it down to 5. I think that is a bit risky, and with the M10 satellites nowadays it's really not hard to get 8, so I would just leave that at 8. And then sanity checks I would put on. Allow arming without fix I would leave like that, just because if you're flying a bando you're quite likely not to get a satellite fix, or maybe have a satellite fix and then fly into a bando, and then if you lose control because of bad signals through a bunch of walls, or whatever, your drone's going to try and fly back to you, probably fly into the roof, into the walls, into everything, and destroy your drone. Whereas if you arm it without having enough satellites and fly, it'll just straight up fall out the sky. So let's go save and reboot, and then we want to come to modes. So I've currently got GPS rescue and failsafe set up because we're going to test both of those. Difference is GPS rescue, if you put that on a button it'll just fly back. It's not doing the sanity checks, which would be, do you have enough satellite locks, or are you far enough away for it to actually accurately know which way it is, taking into consideration that the GPS we're using does not have a compass built in. And then also, if it does not do the sanity checks and you don't have enough sats locked, it might not accurately know where your location is, and it might fly 5,000 meters into the sky before it tries and comes back to your location. That's obviously an exaggeration, but that's how we go. And then obviously we want failsafe on an aux switch to actually test actual failsafe with the sanity checks. Other than that, you need to make sure GPS is activated in your configuration, but it should be by default. Ports, you want to make sure GPS is activated on the UART you've got it connected on. And then the last thing is OSD. So there's a bunch of different elements you can put on. I like having my speed that I'm going, satellite locks with a little arrow to home, and distance from home, and that's about it. But that's those satellite OSD elements I have on I think all of my drones, because if you don't have a satellite connected to your drone and those elements are on there, they'll just not display. But that's basically it. Then we're ready to go. Right, so yeah, in my backyard, gonna go for a little test flight and test all those things that we have. So firstly we have just GPS rescue on this switch, and then yeah, we have actual fail-safe tests, so full on sanity checks and everything to make sure that everything works. Alright, so just got it.
Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered.
Right, so we're gonna go. GoPro's recording. I'm gonna record my goggle DVR. Unfortunately, I can't show OSD, so we are on 24 satellites. And here we go. Alright, so I don't want to be too high in the sky, so in case it fails, my drone doesn't fall too far. Also, I don't want to be too far from this road, just in case. Okay, so here we go, GPS rescue, and it shoots up to the highest point, and it's going the wrong way, but it's coming out. Okay, I'm going to take back control. So that works swimmingly. Now, next test is going to be, go a little bit further. We're going to check the actual failsafe. So here we go. That did not work. Alright, so after that first initial fail, what I've come to realize is that failsafe switch, this option here, was on stage 1. So if you're on stage 1, this option determines what happens when failsafe is activated through org switch. Stage 1 activates failsafe. It's useful if you want to simulate the exact signal loss failsafe behavior. Stage 2 skips stage 1 and activates stage 2. So I'm not quite 100% sure why, but it looks like because of this, the drone didn't actually return to home and it just fell out the sky. It said RX lost on the OSD and fell out the sky. So we're going to stage 2, save and boot, and try again. Alright, so we're back outside. GoPro recording. Goggles recording. So let's see what happens in round 2. 24 satellites at the moment. Okay, so first I'm going to trigger the switch again. And it's working, it's coming back home. Okay, taking back control. Rightio, here we go. So let me just get it positioned. Okay, here we go. Flipping switch. And it's going up to maximum altitude. And it's returning home. So it works. I'm just taking back control because I do not feel like getting stuck in one of those trees. I'm sure you can all appreciate that. Gotta have a bit of fun while we're out here. It's just how we do. Like a glove. Charlie! Alright, so that's it in a nutshell. You got it working. I would not put my life on the risk, my life on the line with this technology, but it works pretty well. It's gotten me out of a pickle once, but it makes you feel a lot better just to have it. Yeah, that's about it. All you need to know.